Hey everyone, how are you? It has been a fair while since I put out a video, but there's good reason for that. The first and obviously biggest project that I'm working on at the moment, if you've been following on Instagram, is the bathroom renovation. So it's just gone the Easter long weekend, and basically the whole weekend I spent working on this. I had great plans to be a lot further ahead. I'd hoped to, by the end of the week, have been ready for, if not already starting on the waterproofing. But I kind of expected this to happen, and it did. Because I've never done this sort of work before, every single step that I take forward is an unknown for me. So all these goals and plans and thoughts that I have about how this is gonna work, they never work out as I expect them to, because I don't know what to expect. So the first job was to do as much demo as possible. So I got the shower out. It's one of these fiberglass inserts that you stick into a corner. That's now also the shower that I have to use downstairs. So my original plan was to put it here in the workshop, but to connect the waste would have just been super tricky because it got damaged when I pulled it out. So I just thought, much easier solution to stick it out on the grass. Just use as little water as possible, and the soap that I'm using is all grey water safe, so it just runs out onto the grass. I've got a hose pipe connected up through the top on a little hook, and being the middle of summer here in Townsville, cold showers are completely doable. Most of the time I shower cold anyway. And I've got to be honest, like, it's kind of cool being able to come outside and shower in nature, so to speak. Like, you hear there's the sounds of nature around you. The last couple of days, it's been so cool. You come down, it's very quiet, the sun's setting, it's got that nice like twilight vibe about it. And you have a shower and you've got the warmth of the day on you. You're not in an air-conned space upstairs. And it's actually magic. My old neighbor back in Adelaide, he used to have a bathtub in his courtyard in the backyard. And he said like once a week he would use it because it's just such a nice feeling to bath or shower out in the open. So I totally get what he's saying. Once the shower was out, then I could start doing I call it the nastier side of this whole project, and that is pulling off the sheets that were lining the wall, because they were all asbestos fiber cement sheets. Now, I've never worked with asbestos, but I've had so many wildly varying opinions on how you need to work with asbestos that I kind of went with what I thought was down the middle, as safe and practical as I could be. My neighbor across the road, he is a licensed asbestos removalist, and he said, you know, if you want to do this properly, you put the full body suits on, goggles, mask, everything. You make sure that there's a good ventilation out of the house, etc., etc. But he's even gone on to say there's so little asbestos in the fiber cement, it's around 6 to 10%, that you probably will be fine cutting back on the safety measures a little bit. Obviously you wear a mask, that's number one importance. The other thing you do is you make sure that you break the fiber cement as little as possible. Because the asbestos is trapped in that cement, it's not like you're cutting it with a grinder where it's all coming up into the air. When you break it, obviously that's the concerning bit, is because that's where it can release some of the fibers. But for the most part, it's all still contained in that sheet. So it's not like where you see these guys going in with oxygen tanks and all of that. They're going into situations where there is the fibers are in the air, and they've used what they call friable asbestos. So that's what they sort of used to stick into the old chimneys as a fire retardant. That's the real nasty stuff. The stuff in the sheets is called non-friable. It's a very low amount. So anyway, the reason why I'm bringing this up is I don't think I'm actually going to include any of this in the video that I'm making of this process, just because there's going to be so many varying opinions on this, and I don't want to put my hand up and say this is what I've done, follow me. And I don't want to be that guy. Even if I took all the precautions in the world, as someone who's not a licensed asbestos removalist, I just don't even want to go near that topic. So I think I'm probably just going to leave this out of the video completely. and we'll just skip from pulling out the shower to all the sheets are off the wall. As I said, I wore a mask. I had a tarpaulin over the door so that none of the air was blowing back into the house, and I set up a big fan blowing out the window so there was negative pressure, basically making sure that nothing blew back into the house, it all went out the window. With all of those measures in mind, and the fact that I wasn't breaking the sheets at all, it was pulling them off the wall, placing them on in bags on the floor. I'm pretty confident with the way I've gone about it, and I think it was, for a weekend warrior, I think I was fairly responsible with it. So once I got all the sheets out, the next job was then to make the bath frame, and this took a lot longer than I thought it would, just purely because I'm not using a nail gun. I could have carted my compressor all the way upstairs and used my nail gun, but I thought it would just be easier to just use screws. And to be fair, it's also a bit stronger as well. So that added to the time. And also, I kind of knew what I was doing. As I said, I've never done this before. A lot of the videos, there's a slight difference in the way the frames are made. Long story short, it just made it a little bit longer. But I got there in the end, and it is a solid bath frame. So at this moment, it's all square, leveled, but not attached to the wall. Tomorrow morning, the plumber should be coming in, and he's going to roughen all of the drain and water. And at that point, I can then put that into the wall and screw it off in place, mount it onto the floor, etc., etc. So I'm pretty happy with how that frame's come together. It is going to be solid. That bath is going nowhere. So that's as far as I got. I would have liked to have at least had the cement sheet down and maybe onto a first coat of waterproofing, but because of all this unknown along the way, that's as far as I could get over the long weekend. Last week I also took a delivery of all of these weatherboards, which I've now started painting. So these are the weatherboards that are going to go outside of the workshop, covering the concrete block wall, and I'm trying to make these mimic the existing weatherboards that are already on the house. Unfortunately, the cuts or the finish on these, while they are rough, similar to the original ones, they don't have the saw marks of the original ones. So they're not going to be exactly the same. They'll be close, and I don't think it's going to be too bad, but you're probably going to notice that transition. Someone did mention to me, why not try and put a strip of timber, like a 40 by 40 block or a 90 by 40 block around, and that'll be like the separation, so it won't be so obvious, which I might do, but we'll see. Either way, I still think you're going to notice it, but at least you'll be able to break it up a bit and it won't be too bad. The other thing as well is that this house, I suspect, was painted, well, it was painted recently, but I suspect with a semi-gloss paint. So for those of you who don't know, generally speaking, your broad 4 sheen levels are matte, which is no sheen. Low sheen, which is the next one up, semi-gloss, and then gloss. Now, for the most part, gloss is almost never used these days unless you're doing something specific or architectural. That's just from my experience. I could be wrong, but that's what I found. Semi-gloss and low sheen, semi-gloss almost never seen, but you might see that on, say, doors or trim. Low sheen is the popular one. That's the one that you'll see most houses painted with. You often see that on trim work and doors. And then you've got matte finish, which is my favorite. It's the least reflective paint, and that's what a lot of people today use on their walls inside. The higher the sheen level, the better the resistance is to dirt and weather, but the lower the sheen level, the better it is at hiding any imperfections because it doesn't pick up any light. There's no reflection of light to show you any lumps or bumps or divots in the wall. So this house has been painted entirely with semi-gloss. So when I put on this wall outside, those cement boards, and I painted with the low sheen paint, I immediately noticed that there was a difference. So now I either go back out and get some semi-gloss paint and repaint this, or the route that I'm going to take, do these weatherboards also in low sheen, and then the rest of the house, just slowly work my way through it. I just need to put on one coat of low sheen, and then that'll be fine. I just think low sheen looks so much better, and while it might be a little bit extra work, I think in the long run, it'll be worth it. Yesterday, the sawyer came around with a couple of logs. They're pretty short logs that he milled up for me not too long ago. This is part of a commission job that I got where the lady involved said, I'm getting my tree cut down. Would you be able to make me a bookshelf out of it? And I said, well, that's fantastic, no problem. You do realize that it's going to take you about a year before I can actually make the bookshelf because the timber's got to dry. And she said, no, that's fine, that's cool. Which, yeah, amazing. I think her foresight into that is so cool, and her trust as well. You know, to put that job on me and say, we'll see you in here. Anyway, while I was there, she had these other branches which were a bit smaller, probably only about that big. And I met her and the sawyer at the same time because he was the one milling them up. And I said to him, you know, would you mind? Cool, no problem. Anyway, he dropped them off yesterday. They are, I think, Vic Ash, looking at the color of it. But they are solid as well. Now, granted, they are still a bit wet, which is why they're going to feel a lot heavier, but the grain looks very, very tight. So even though they're short boards and, you know, it's not, I'm not going to be able to get too much use out of them, what I will be able to do with them, it's going to be amazing. So even if it's like chopping boards, they are going to be such good timber for that. I can't wait for them to dry, which will probably be about another year, and then I can finally get onto it. Over the weekend, I decided to finally suck it up and get myself a decent lawnmower. Now, I know for a lot of people that may not seem like interesting or even good news, but I really enjoy mowing my lawn. It's just a really fun pastime of mine. Up until now, I've been using a little dinky electric mower, and that's what I used back in Adelaide. It was fine for the size yard that I had. It was a tiny little yard, so there was no point in me getting a gigantic lawnmower for it. Brought that up to Townsville with me here on my 750 square meter block, and I've had to break up my mowing into chunks. Like, I'll do this section today, this section tomorrow, this section the day after, because it's just such a small thing that it takes me hours to do my backyard, and then hours to do the side of the yard, and then hours to the front. So I just said, you know what, this is ridiculous. I'm assuming I will never have a lawn smaller than this, so just go and buy yourself a decent lawnmower. It's funny, when I was a kid, I would have never in my wildest dreams thought I'd be sitting here talking to a camera about how excited I am about a new lawnmower. If you're on the northeast coast of Queensland, you may have been watching Tropical Cyclone Iris go by. So there was a concern that it was going to hit Townsville probably a couple days ago, but at this stage it's now gone past, it's tracked south, and it looks like it's not even going to be making landfall at all. It's a Category 3 cyclone at the moment, so it's pretty substantial. It's not like the Category 5 that we had last year, which just wiped out a certain area of Queensland, but it's a pretty substantial one, and we are feeling the effects of it, but in my opinion, very good way. So we've had all this rain this year, so we don't need any more rain, which is nice. And because we are on the north side of the cyclone, which turns in a clockwise direction, what happens is that wind comes off the land into Townsville. All of that air, because it's coming off the land, is dry. Now, if you're on the south of it, then it's picking the air up off the water, and you're getting that, which is very humid, moist air. So it's been amazing. Today, the humidity's been like 50% because there's all this dry air. It's been so good. Like, I've actually been able to walk around all day with a shirt on and not feel like I'm suffocating or drowning in my own sweat. You know, there could still be more cyclones this year. We don't know. But because it's already into April, you would expect that the season is now winding down. Running training is going pretty well. I did another 10K run yesterday. Felt magic this morning. Super strong, good time. The baby's tracking along well as well. We've got my wife and I have a scan lined up on Thursday to check that everything's okay. And that's about all, I think. I haven't really spent much time in this workshop over the last week or two. That bassinet video was the last one, and now this is just a place to store all of these painted boards. But you know, I guess right now my priorities are not necessarily on woodworking, it's all about renovating. So it just is what it is. All right, guys, well, that's about it. Just a quick update to let you know where I am. And yeah, thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next video.